The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its host, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss the murder in your family on this podcast, please be sure to visit themurderinmyfamily.com for more information. You can support this podcast by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. This episode may contain unsettling material or subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you for joining me for episode 69 of The Murder in My Family. I'm your host, Mike Morford. In this episode, we'll be discussing the senseless and tragic murder of a kind and talented young college student whose goal in life was to become a doctor and help others. Sadly, random gang violence intervened. We'll get into this case after some quick housekeeping. Independent podcasts like this one depend on word of mouth to bring in new listeners. So if you find that you enjoy this podcast, please take a minute to rate and review it wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to introduce a friend to the show and invite them to listen. With your help, The Murder in My Family can grow and reach a new audience. To learn more about the show or the cases we discuss, please visit themurderinmyfamily.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @MurderMyFam, or by searching for the Murder in My Family podcast on Facebook. If you'd like to support the show through a Patreon donation, it's always appreciated. And you can do so by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. Benefits of supporting the show on Patreon include early access to ad-free episodes of the show, plus bonus content not heard in regular episodes. Support may also include thank you cards, stickers, and more. If you prefer to, you can also support the show through a PayPal donation by visiting paypal.me/themurderinmyfamily. In each episode, I'll give shout-outs to any new supporters. And thank you to all of the supporters that generously donate to help keep the show growing and improving. One more note before we get started. Please consider supporting any of the sponsors that you hear on The Murder in My Family, the way that those sponsors support the show. It's with our sponsors' support that this show can go on and continue to provide a platform to share these stories with you in every episode. Thank you. And now on with the show. Briuna LaFaye Harps was born on September 18, 1999 in Georgia. She graduated from Fort Worth Wyatt High School in Texas in 2018. Briuna loved school and valued her education. She was highly intelligent and had big dreams for her future. In May 2019, 19-year-old Briuna had just completed the first year of pre-med classes at Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas. She had plans to go to medical school after she graduated from Midwestern State. It was Briuna's dream to become a doctor and help people. On May 17, 2019, Briuna was headed to Atlanta to spend the summer with her father, but on her way, she stopped to visit her cousin at the Autumn Chase Apartments at 3500 South Riverside Drive in Fort Worth. At 10:45 p.m., Briuna and her cousin were standing in the parking lot talking when someone opened fire in their direction from the front of the complex. Both of them tried to escape the sudden gunshots. Luckily, Briuna's cousin was unharmed. Sadly, the same wasn't true of Briuna. She had been shot in the head. Police were called, and an ambulance rushed Briuna to John Peter Smith Hospital, where she died a half hour after being shot. Her cousin, who was in shock after the gunfire, called for police a car passing by and someone randomly shooting into the apartment complex. Authorities immediately suspected that Briuna's murder was gang-related, but that she and her cousin weren't the intended targets. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The police theory was that a suspected Crip gang member opened fire in retaliation for a drive-by carried out by a Blood gang member that happened a few days earlier. At the time of Briuna's murder, a decade-old gang feud had recently flared up in Fort Worth that left 3 people there dead in 10 shootings, including Briuna. The rivalry between the Bloods and the Crips goes back nearly 50 years and began in south-central Los Angeles. Sadly, As in many areas of the country, gang violence is growing in the Fort Worth area, and all too often, it's innocent people caught in the crossfire that become victims of the violence. After learning of his daughter's murder, Briuna's father, Timothy Harps, was heartbroken and was tasked with telling the rest of his family that Briuna was gone. He hoped for swift justice in her death, but was disappointed that police didn't have much to work with. Timothy Harps personally offered a $2,000 reward for information leading to an arrest in the case, but no one came forward to collect it. During the week following Briuna's murder, police responded to several calls of shots being fired in the area. According to Fort Worth police, the city has nearly 900 documented gang members, but only a dozen were suspected to be involved in the feud that led to Briuna's murder. This feud started in 2010 when a gang member from the Bloods allegedly shot a member of the Crips. Police interviewed several witnesses, but perhaps out of fear, many of them weren't willing to talk. Only a week before Briuna was gunned down, 36-year-old Derek Cobble, known as Glen Garden Hardhead, was shot in the parking lot of 2 Live Club on East Belknap. In the days leading up to Briuna's murder, it seemed that the gangs were heavily active. On May 16th, a group of men shouted "On Blood" from an orange Dodge Caliber before opening fire on people at a convenience store in the 800 block of East Davis. No one was injured in the shooting, but it prompted the Crips to retaliate against the East Side Bloods. Following Briuna's murder, the gang activity and shootings didn't slow down. On May 21st, Tony Austin Jr., who was 28 years old, was shot and killed while outside Ace Auto Repair and Tire on East Berry Street. A 27-year-old man named Avery LeVar Coulter was arrested on suspicion of capital murder, even though he didn't fire the fatal shot. The charges eventually changed to deadly conduct and unlawful possession of a firearm. Another man named Demorian Allen, who was 26 years old, was arrested for involvement in the May 21st shooting. On May 31st, federal authorities arrested Derek Cobble on a charge of a felon in possession of a firearm. He was held in federal custody. It's unknown who pulled the trigger and murdered 19-year-old Briuna, but it's safe to say that it ties directly to this activity. Local leaders like Reverend Tatum of New Mount Rose Missionary Baptist Church believe that gang violence can be eradicated, but it doesn't begin with the gang members themselves. It takes a community effort and help from the police. In June 2019, Reverend Tatum invited gang members to his church, and a few showed up for the June 2nd service, where they prayed with the congregation. Reverend Tatum's church also hosts leadership training and conflict resolution seminars for the community. He believes the change to a better and safer community is through the people. Meanwhile, authorities from the police department's gang unit are heavily involved in local schools with a gang intervention program, similar to the long-running DARE program. Officers also visit places like the Boys and Girls Club and community centers, areas where children visit. They also hope to gain the community's trust so people will come forward with information to help solve cases. Timothy Harps said in 2019 that he had plans to move his other daughter and her young kids to Atlanta to get them away from the violence in Fort Worth. To date, there have been no arrests in the murder of Briuna LaFaye Harps, and sadly, her family is left to wonder if they will ever get justice. I sat down to talk with Briuna's dad, Timothy, about his daughter's senseless death and her amazing life. That conversation is coming up in just a moment. Is there something that interferes with your happiness? Is something preventing you from achieving your goals? I know there's been times when I wanted to go out and do something, but didn't make it because things I had on my mind kept me from doing what I wanted to do. If you find yourself in a similar situation, then BetterHelp Online Counseling just might be the right solution for you. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can connect in a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient. and you can start communicating with a counselor in under 24 hours. This isn't self-help. It's professional counseling. Send a message to your counselor anytime. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, all without having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. And BetterHelp can assist you with so many things, from depression, stress, and anxiety, to family conflicts, sleep issues, and more. Anything you share is confidential. And while BetterHelp is not a crisis line, it is convenient, professional, and affordable. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener of the Murder My Family, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting BetterHelp.com/family. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Once again, go to BetterHelp, that's HELP.com/family, and you'll save 10% on your first month of BetterHelp. Hi, Timothy. It's good to have you here to talk about your daughter Briuna's case with us on the Murder of My Family.
Thank you. Thank you.
I guess I first want to ask how you're doing. I know it's been a little over a year since your daughter was murdered. How have you personally been handling yourself after that?
Well, it's an everyday journey. Believe it or not, it still seems like it happened yesterday. So I just take every day, one day at a time, and just try to mentally manage it with my family.
As a father myself, I can't imagine what you must have gone through. How did you and your family get through this 15 months or so since it happened?
Well, it's been very hard and definitely stressful on my family. Of course, my wife pretty much haven't worked since it happened, and I just try to keep everybody going, try to keep my other kids and Briuna siblings inspired and hopeful, and hopefully, I think what I'm looking for is closures, not only for myself and Briuna, but for her siblings and the whole family. And that way, I just think that they'll be able to move forward somewhat, just knowing that someone is accountable for this senseless act.
So you think that if you were to get justice and get answers and find out who did this, that would help your entire family in the long run?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
And before we go into the details of the attack that took your daughter's life, can you tell us a little bit about Briuna herself and what she was like? I read that she was going to college and hoped to go to medical school. So it sounds like she had a lot planned out for herself.
Yes, she did. Briuna have always been a wonderful young lady. She, from elementary school all the way through high school, she always was volunteering in some kind of activity, community function. She loved to do stuff like feed the homeless and just help people in general. And that was her goal. She had a passion for people. And her goal was to become a medical doctor. So, not only could she help people, but help them at a good price and just be able to give people service that's affordable. And, it just amazed me about her passion for the people and community. She just loved people in general.
And that's what's sad. I mentioned a lot of the cases I do. There's a ripple effect that when someone's murdered, it changes the outcome for so many other people that, people she might have one day helped as a doctor now won't get that help. It's just something that I don't think people fully comprehend all the time of what the effects are and how far reaching it is when something like this happens.
Yes. Yes, that's definitely correct because, her goal was to, travel, give out free service, just be a traveling doctor, just to give out service in wherever she could. And I would just say amazed and inspired as a father. When you have a child who want to reach out to the world like this, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, especially because when someone's younger, A lot of times they're thinking about themselves. It sounds like she was thinking about other people and what she could do to help others.
Yes, that is correct. She would never focus on going out partying. Always, I can remember her being 5 or 6 years old. She always talked about helping people, and that just have been her journey. Her whole life is to help people. And even, since this happened, just her school, how people came to me and said that when they didn't have money, and how she would give them money and give them money to eat in college. And I didn't even know anything about it till her colleagues told me during her funeral. So I was just inspired.
So hearing that kind of stuff makes you proud.
Yes, it does.
And let's go back to that tragic day in May last year. Briuna was just 19. She's almost finished with her first year in college. She's visiting her cousin, hanging out, and they're minding their own business. They're not doing anything wrong, just sitting there. And it seems like a fight erupted between gang members, and I guess before they could react, bullets were flying. And unfortunately, your daughter was struck and she was killed. How did you find out what happened, and how did you process that?
So I got the call from homicide about 10 o'clock on the 17th, 10 o'clock that evening, and because Briuna had just finished school and she was supposed to fly home that Saturday morning. And so I got the call, and when they said homicide, I actually fell to my knees and I fell on the floor because I knew it was her, because she was only one of my kids who was out. And then they relayed the message to me, and that she didn't make it.
I can't even imagine that. And then I assume you had to break the news to the rest of your family. How do you even get the strength to do that?
It was it's probably the hardest things that I had to do, because Briuna had a sibling who's a couple years younger than her, and it was a countdown. They just did everything together, and it was a countdown for her to see Briuna, because she was expecting Briuna the following day. And when I told her, she collapsed. It was just horrible. It's just been horrible.
I think for any parent to find out that their child has died is just something we don't happen. Our kids are supposed to outlive us. But this is worse because it's not a car accident. She wasn't sick. This was just a violent, senseless, random crime that didn't need to happen. When you found out the details that it was due to this senseless violence, did that make you angry? Did your sadness turn to anger at all for that?
At first, it was just sadness. Then it turned to anger, because it was just so senseless. I mean, the whole time I lived in Fort Worth, I just didn't incur these kind of issues. I lived on Southwest Fort Worth, and my kids have always been able to go anywhere in on Southwest Fort Worth, and we just haven't had any issues. And the anger grew. I'm angry today. It's a lot of anger built up, and I see so many people fight against the police these days, and that angers me as well, because so much stuff is senseless that go on today, and I think because of the way I lost my daughter, I just can't defend anyone who try to inflict any kind of violence on anybody.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, because there's a lot of happening in the world today, a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of arguing back and forth about what's right, what's not right. But I think we can all agree that innocent lives being cut short by people that choose to do lawless stuff and shoot in the middle of the streets is just something that we just can't have.
Exactly. So it's I mean, when I hear anything about any gangs, I cringe. It has really made me angry. I mean, I'm a business owner, and I used to didn't own guns, and I'm angry. I'm angry, and I'm scared that when I'm out here somewhere, I'll get caught up in the same thing that my own child got caught up in. So it put fear in you, it put anger, sadness. I mean, just anxiety of that senseless crime have just changed my whole thinking and changed the whole life of my whole family.
I just, I'm at a loss for words trying to think of another question because I can't imagine what you're going through. Is gang activity, this kind of thing, is it common in that area? I read a little bit that it seemed to have not been, then all of a sudden it seemed to have started up. What's the history there, and as long as you've been there?
I've never came across any gang activity the whole time I lived in Fort Worth. And so it was very shocking to me. I heard it was there in the 80s before I arrived in Fort Worth, but I just didn't hear anything that was going on. And the same month that Briuna was murdered, there was so many shootings that month in Fort Worth. I just couldn't even think. It's been horrible.
When you first found out that she was dead and you had to break this to your family and then you had to cope with the aftermath and laying her to rest and everything, I assume you moved on to wanting to know, okay, who's did this? Did you talk to the police? Were they open with you? Did they share what information they could with you?
They was not open with me. I did not even hear it that it was gang related, but not one time have the police let me know it was gang related.
And have police since talked to you at all? Have they been open at all with you about what they're doing to try and identify or catch the killer?
No, sir. They have not been open with me ever since the funeral. Ever since Briuna's funeral, I have not heard from the Fort Worth police. I was calling them every single day, and I think it came to the point where I was just agitating them. And Fort Worth was going through a lot of scandals with the police department. You know, the chief either was fired or stepped down or resigned, but there was a lot of stuff going on. And instead of telling me about my child, the police was telling me about everything that they're going through, and I just didn't think that was fair.
So it's almost like they were dismissing the pain of you losing your daughter and telling you about the problems they were having, like they didn't want to deal with her.
Exactly. And I just don't think, I personally think that they just take it as another shooting in Fort Worth, another murder, because not one time have the police, detectives, anyone called me and said, hey, Mr. Harps, we're very sorry about what happened. We're still working on it. They have not contacted me, not one time.
Wow. And as a parent, that's the last thing you want to hear from the police who are supposed to help you get answers and get justice for your daughter.
Yes, I have wrote the police department without any response. I've left the detective who I thought was on the case, still no return calls. Once Channel 46 called me and they interviewed me live, then the detective reached out to my family just to say that it wasn't any updates. But then when I tried to call him back, I never have been able to reach him. I just get his voicemail. And so it's very discouraging that a city like Fort Worth, which is, to me, is a beautiful city, but I just don't think the leadership was there at the police department to solve this, because it could have been, I think if they would have stayed on it, it could have been solved. And the other thing is other people who were calling emailing and Facebooking me about leads, and I would shoot that over to the police, and they never responded to me.
See, that makes me sad and angry that, even if the police can't solve it, they should at least have the courtesy to call you and follow up with you and respond to you and say, look, we're working on it. Sorry we haven't been able to solve it yet, but at least give you the respect of returning your call and letting you know that they hear you.
Yeah. The last time I talked to one of the detectives, he really acted like I was aggravating him and bugging him, and he even told me I'm not the only one who lost a child. So it became very discouraging. And the other thing is, someone did reach out to me from Fort Worth and anonymous, and he was telling me that they actually knew who was involved. The police department knew, but they was actually trying to catch somebody else. So, I don't know how credible that was. And I did let the detective know in a voicemail what I was told, but I did not get a return call.
Hmm. And as far as witnesses or clues or possible leads or suspects or anything, do you know anything about what they do have to work with or something that might help catch Briuna's killer?
They have not contacted me about any leads. The leads that I've given the police is from people who've contacted me. I put out a reward. People have came forward with leads, but the police apparently didn't find anything credible because they have not contacted me. They haven't even said we're looking at this. They have not communicated with me.
Now, and Briuna was with her cousin when this happened, and luckily her cousin wasn't hurt. Could her cousin provide any additional details, a description, anything at all that might help solve the case one day?
No, and when I talked to her, what she was saying is it happened so fast, and she seen Briuna went down, and she was trying to actually help Briuna, and so it just happened so fast. But when I went there and I looked at the apartment complex, and I seen different cameras, but the police said they were searching, but to this day I just haven't got no answers. They have not given me one answer.
Just so frustrating. Have you thought about hiring a private investigator or anything along those lines, doing another way, since the police don't seem to be taking it seriously?
Yes. What I did is I took the step to communicate with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. So I've been running reward ads in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and I wanted to do this for a little while. And then, I would definitely reach out to some kind of investigator who'd be willing to help.
It's just, and you mentioned it, this kind of violence can just happen in a split second, to where you're sitting there on a step 1 second, shooting starts, and then a couple seconds later, your life is over. That's, and again, thankfully, Briuna's cousin wasn't hurt, but Briuna's not here. And it's something that we hear all the time in the news. Has that changed anything in your community? Has there been any kind of people standing up to that, calling that stuff out, or saying enough of this stuff?
In the community that I am now, there are different programs that we use to fight gang. I personally work with young men to help them, be positive. Of course, as a business owner, I'm able to employ a lot of young people, and that's what I've been doing. I reach out to parents kids who may be going through some kind of challenges or behavior issues. So I have a center in Atlanta that we definitely work with a lot of young people in. And of course, we started the Briuna Harps Foundation, and we've been giving scholarships back to her school, which is Midwestern State there in Wichita, Texas, and to help any deserving young ones who need help with schooling. We definitely do that on a regular basis. So yeah, we definitely do a lot of programs and do a lot of meetings with young ones to try to you know, help young ones who actually reach out to gangs and who want to become gang members, because I let them know that, hey, it's, you know, we've lost too many innocent lives in the world and in these communities that that shouldn't have happened from senseless gang violence.
And if you can share those, if you can send me some links for those different programs, I'll be sure to put them in the show so people can find them and learn about them.
Okay.
And I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, but has your daughter's death changed you or the way you view the world or view people overall?
It somewhat have. It have put anger. You know, I'm bitter, and I have to admit I'm bitter, and I'm more cautious than I ever been in my life. I've always been. Me and Briuna kind of shared the same personality. We always been free will and passionate about people, and so it's it is kind of sometimes I feel like I'm restrained because I'm cautious. I'm always looking up. I'm always checking my surroundings, and it's different. My life is different.
Are you a person of faith?
I am.
Yeah. Has your faith helped you through this?
Yeah, if it wasn't for my faith, and if it wasn't for the strength that the Almighty God has given me, I wouldn't have survived this.
If you could say anything to the person that fired that bullet that killed your daughter, what would you say to them if your voice could reach them?
I would say I would like for them to be held accountable. I will offer my forgiveness. That way they don't have to live with this on their conscience. And it would help me. It would help my family. And even if they turned themselves in today, I would even give their family the $10,000 reward that I have out for this.
Has it gotten easier for you? It's just over a year. It's a year and a few months since this happened. Have you made strides forward of finding peace?
No, I haven't found any kind of peace. There was times when this first happened. If it wasn't for doctor putting me on medication, I couldn't sleep, and just the any noise would wake me up. I mean, it's been a journey. So I've had to go through counseling. My whole family is still in counseling to this day, and so it's I just haven't found peace at all.
And I think you mentioned earlier that hearing about an arrest, having someone that is held accountable, you think that would bring some peace to your family.
It would bring closure, and it would bring closure to me and my wife and my kids, and you know, and I'm actually willing to forgive this person because as a Christian I have to do that, but it has to be accountability.
Sure. What is it that you missed most about Briuna?
Well, she was one of the kids who would call me on a regular basis and pray with me. Just how proud of. She always told me how proud she was of me as a business owner and what we did. We went out here and we got into these communities and we fed the homeless. Anybody, if they needed help paying bills, electric bill in the wintertime, we did this. So we did this as a family, and she led this. If it was collecting hats and coats, and this is what she did, and just a beautiful smile. She was a beautiful young lady, beautiful smile. Her 19 years of living, she never given me not one time. If she ever disagreed with me, I don't even know about it. She was my life. She were.
What would you like Briuna's legacy to be, or what would you like her to be remembered for?
Her passion for people. She was never judgmental. If she was around anybody and she heard somebody being judgmental of anybody, she would knock it down right then. Just very non-judgmental and just passionate. She don't care who it was, where they was from. She was just passionate about people. and she loved diversity, and she always spoke to her siblings about diversity and her friends. She had a very diverse group of friends. She wanted to learn different cultures, different languages. Just a wonderful young lady.
Well, my heart goes out to you as a parent myself. I couldn't imagine what you're going through, and I hope that you do find the person that did this so you can get, as you put, closure. So if it helps your family and this person's held accountable, that would be great. And I thank you for coming on to share Briuna's story with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of The Murder of My Family. Please, if you have any information about the murder of Briuna LaFaye Harps, you're asked to contact the Fort Worth Police Department Homicide Unit at 817-392-4330. As we wrap up this episode, I'd like to play a preview of a true crime podcast I think you'll really enjoy. It's called Malice. Be sure to give it a listen. We'll be back here soon with an all-new episode of The Murder of My Family. But before you go, remember that every murder victim means something to somebody.
Hi everyone, I'm Ariel Cooksey, host of Malice. When violent acts occur, we tend to think the predators are monsters. Surely no human could do such things. But if we're honest, only humans commit malicious crime. And if you're like me, you want to know why. To find out, join me at Malice wherever you listen to podcasts. Bye.